बेटा
पूरा साइड पूरा उससे आगे चल के लीजिए। एक बार मैन टू मैन ले लीजिएगा, ठीक है ना, साइड से। यार लाइट नहीं पड़ रही है, धूप कम है। मूव करेंगे।
विद्या परिषदा सुपरीक्षित समुद्भूतेभ्यः उपाधिभूतेभ्यः शास्त्रेभ्यः शास्त्री शिक्षा शास्त्री आचार्य परीक्षोपाधि प्रदानाय श्रीमद्भ्यः महाभागेभ्यः आचार्य प्रवर श्री तुलसी महाराजेभ्यश्च वाक्पति इति सम्मानोपाधिम् अर्पयितुम् अद्य अयं दीक्षान्त समारोहः समायोजितः। तस्यैव ओस्मानिया विश्वविद्यालयस्य सप्तसप्ततमवर्षतः त्रयोदशतमवर्षपर्यन्तं वारद्वयं कुलपतित्वभारं सम्पूर्णवर्षाः क्रियते। अस्मिन् एव कुलपतित्वक्रमे महोदयाः हैदराबादे स्थितस्य आन्ध्रप्रदेशमुक्तविश्वविद्यालयस्य न केवलं प्रथम कुलपतिपदं 82तमवर्षतः 85तमवर्षपर्यन्तं वर्षत्रयं विभूषितवन्तः, अपि च आन्ध्रप्रदेशशासनादेशेन राज्यमुक्तविश्वविद्यालयस्थापनाय विमर्शितमे वर्षे विशेषतमवर्षतः एकसहस्रवर्षपर्यन्तं प्रभाविता एतेषां विशुद्धिसेवां विद्वत्सां च आश्रित्य बहून्यलङ्करणानि बहवः पुरस्काराः उपाधयश्चापि सम्मानं दत्ताः। यथा राजशास्त्रे शिक्षा क्षेत्रे च वैशिष्ट्यकृते सप्ताहतमे वर्षे विश्वविद्यालयाङ्गानि आन्ध्रप्रदेशविश्वविद्यालये नवमतमे वर्षे उपयुक्तं सर्वं सम्मानं सर्वे पुरस्काराः विद्यार्थीभावयो इदं एव वेद्यमहोदयानां सर्वं कौशलम् अनुकूल्यैव तत्संस्थापि दत्ता। लोकप्रसिद्धमेव एतं समर्पितो विश्वविद्यालयस्य प्रस्तावो इदं सर्वकाले अष्टसप्ततमे वर्षे यक्षाभाति नन्दनस्य राज्यकुलसचिवालयस्य प्रधानमन्त्रिणे समर्पितं दूरवर्ति शिक्षापुरस्कारसहिते राज्यकुलसहयोगिविशेषज्ञसमिते सदस्यत्वं प्रति एतेषां विश्वविख्यातमेव श्रीदेवीमहाभागैः तिरस्कार शिक्षा दूरवर्ति शिक्षा विषयकाः बहवो मौलिकाः जीवननिबन्धाः शासनभागताः अनेके प्रशासनकार्यकर्तृत्वे उक्तविषयकाः स्तरीयाः जीवननिबन्धाः त्रयशीतितमवर्षतः एव प्रशासनम् आगच्छन्ति। ते निबन्धाः मारिट्, हैदराबाद, मद्रास्, नवदेहली, देशीयनगरेभ्यः पत्रेषु प्रकाशिताः। लण्डन्, धारवाड, कोल्कत्ता, हैदराबाद, अहमदाबाद स्थानेषु स्थितैः गौरवयुताभिः एतेषां निबन्धप्रकाशनाय सामूहिकतया प्रयासः क्रियते। अतः अहं तत्र प्रस्तुतम् अध्यक्षमहोदयं निवेदयामि यदेतादृशप्रथमशाखाशैक्षणिक योग्यतावर्धितेभ्यः श्रीगजरामेश्वरमहोदयेभ्यः वाक्पति सम्मानोपाधि आयनीकृत्य शिक्षासंस्थानस्यास्य गौरवम् अभिवर्धयन्। इदानीम् अहं प्रार्थये सम्मानोपाधि समर्पयामि।
केन्द्रीय उच्च विपणि शिक्षा संस्थानस्य अध्यक्षाधिकारेण अहं भवतां शिक्षायाः समाजस्य संस्कृतेश्च अनुकूलसेवायाः कृते अस्य विद्यासंस्थानस्य तृतीयदीक्षान्तसमारोहे भवद्भ्यो महाभागेभ्यः वाक्पतिः सम्मानोपाधिं उपायनं करोमि। कामये चास्य महिमं मण्डितस्य उपाधेः आजीवनं परिधारणाय।
राजधानी श्रीनगर से हर चीज़ संक्षेप
परिणतं विराजते। तस्मिन् खलु विश्वविद्यालये आगमानाम् अनुसन्धानं संशोधनं समीक्षां सम्पादनादीनि च कालव्यापिन्या महत्या कार्ययोजनया अनुष्ठीयन्ते। आचार्यप्रवराः संस्कृत, प्राकृत, हिंदी, राजस्थान्यादि विविध भारतीय भाषासु पारंगताः मर्मज्ञाश्च विद्वांसाः कवयो लेखकाः वक्तारः उपदेष्टारश्च सन्ति। दैवसंख्याकाः महनीयाः संस्थाः एवं अस्य यावत् सहिताः सम्पूर्णं राष्ट्रं तावत् एवं क्रियया पदयात्रया न केवलं प्रतीकृतम् अपितु तद्वारा भारतीय समाजे व्यापकं सरलम् सर्वार्थम् अधुनापि विश्वशान्त्यै समत्वं प्रतिष्ठापनायै च असक्तं विधायकं तत्त्वम्। अतः सर्वधर्म सम्प्रदायानुयायैः साधुभिः धर्माचार्यैश्च एकीभूय प्रयासो क्रियात् एतेषां उत्तरं दुष्फलं च मतम्। एताम् अनुशासनसंग्रामकाले च एवं क्रियमाणं अवधानं राम सेनापति राष्ट्रीय भावना जागरणे एतस्य व्यक्तिजनेभ्यः समेतं क्रियमाणां एतेषां सत्परामर्शो ज्ञानयुक्तापेक्षाः तन्देवाभागे द्वारा प्रहिते समर्पितम् इत्यन्ये ग्रन्थेषु एतेषां प्रयोगो न विस्मरणीयताम् आह। साधूनां प्रपञ्चानां सन्तानां च हृदयेषु जातिवर्गलिङ्गसम्प्रदायाः संस्थाः कोऽपि भेदः फलं न निदधाति। ते अनासक्त्या लोकहिताय लोकसुखाय च सर्वदा सन्ति। इयमेव भारतीयसन्तानां परम्परा। अस्यामेव परम्परायां वेद विद्यापतिविषया आचार्यः महाभागाः अतएव अहं तत्र भवन्तम् अध्यक्षमहोदयं निवेदयामि यत् एतादृश अभ्युदय निष्क्रियताः विद्याप्रतिष्ठापकेभ्यः जङ्गमतीर्थेभ्यः आचार्यश्री तुलसीमहाराजेभ्यः वास्तविक मानववादी शिक्षासंस्थानस्य अहं इदानीं
केन्द्रीय उच्च तिब्बती शिक्षा संस्थानस्य अध्यक्षाधिकारेण अहं भवतां शिक्षायाः समाजस्य संस्कृतेः अनुत्तरसेवायाः कृते अस्य विद्यासंस्थानस्य तृतीयदीक्षान्तसमारोहे तेषाम् अनुपस्थितौ वाक्पतिः इति सम्मानोपाधि उपायनीकरोमि। आचार्य तुलसीमहाराजेभ्यः कामये च अस्य महिममण्डितस्य उपाधेः आजीवनं परिधारणाय।
तेषां सम्यक् सेवा मनसा वाचा कर्माणि न कदापि प्रभावो भवेत्।
माननीय ईश्वर महोदय, अहं भवतां समक्षं रक्षमाणानि स्म कथां समुपस्थापयामि। एते पञ्चविंशतिशततमवृद्धाब्देः एकोनविंशतिशततमे ईस्वीय बौद्धबौद्धदर्शनं सम्यक् परीक्षा द्वारा आत्मनः तद्विषयक आचरणं निवेद्यन्ति यत् अस्मिन् दीक्षान्तसमारोहे
How happy I am to receive the degree today. This is one degree which I am receiving without passing the examination for it. Many wish that all degrees were given without passing examination. Chairman sir, it is a rare privilege for me to be an alumnus of this institution. I deem it a great honor to have been invited to deliver the convocation address this year. And I thank you most sincerely for the honor you have done me. If I am here today, it is not because of my scholarship in Buddhism, but because of the generosity of the Chancellor, who, unlike me, is a distinguished scholar and an authority on Buddhism. I would like to wish the outgoing students a bright and prosperous future. I am sure that training received in this university will stand them in good stead. Talking of the university life, Robertson Davis says, I quote, "Autumn to me is the most congenial of seasons, the university to me the most congenial of life." I unquote. Those of you who will be leaving the portals of this institution would remember that the most congenial part of your life was spent here. The Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies in its present form was born in 1967 and later developed into a new university. Its objectives include concern with preservation of Tibetan culture and tradition, restoration of ancient Indian sciences, and literature preserved in the Tibetan language, and offer of an alternate educational facility to students of Indian border areas and accomplishment of gains of teaching and research in traditional subjects through a model university system with provision for award of degrees in Tibetan studies. Since its establishment, the Institute has evolved an innovative framework for teaching and research. Its alumni, it appears, are serving the Tibetan studies in various parts of the world. The Institute's researchers have led to restoration of some of the lost Indian texts. The Institute thus is playing a notable part in preserving the traditional knowledge of ancient India. This is an institute which has a special focus. It is not like the other universities. Not being an expert either in Buddhism or in Tibetan language, I have a serious handicap in addressing this gathering. But as a student of Indian history at the undergraduate level, I have some nodding acquaintance with Buddhism, and today I wish to say a few words about it. When one travels to countries like Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Japan, Thailand, China, etc., the most significant thing that strikes one is the spread of Buddhism beyond the borders of India. In these countries, Buddhism is preserved with great devotion and dedication. In fact, much more than what we do in India. Buddhism began to spread vigorously under the patronage of the Maurya dynasty. Its important centers were Magadha, Kosala, Mathura, and Ujjaini. With the rise of the Shukas, the Mon people were Buddhism, then it spread to Burma, Thailand, etc. By the 5th century AD, Buddhism spread to Java and Sumatra. It appears Buddhism was taken to Japan via Korea. It is of great significance to note that in most of these countries, it is an active religion practiced by millions of people. We in India view Buddhism as a great asset to our country, and this asset can be made full use of with strengthening our bonds with the Asian families. Taking advantage of today's occasion, I wish to say a few words about the Buddhist education system. Branchical orthodoxy, its missionary tendency, and direct communication with the people through such orthodoxy. First, it employed Pali, the spoken language, and secondly, it opened portals of education to all, irrespective of caste or class. As is well known, it did not sanction caste privileges and social monopolies. According to the existing practices, the low-caste people were denied opportunities of receiving education, and only privileged caste could have access to the scriptures. Buddhism emerged as a powerful force which ushered in an era of atonement for people and left far-reaching impact on their minds, who accepted it as a great liberator. One of the means of such liberation was through this system of education. They reorganized the educational structure which operated through the famous Buddhist monasteries. Scholars from different countries flocked to such centers. The bhikshus, monks, became custodians of this culture. They were vested with the right to receive religious and general education. Establishment of these educational systems. Monasteries were developed into corporate educational institutions. They enjoyed absolute autonomy, strong democratic spirit, and liberal atmosphere in their function. Their objectives were to teach people one, civic responsibilities, training in different arts and industry, 3, teaching of religion and philosophy, and inculcate among people the values of a code of discipline and ethical conduct. Then peace and non-violence, truth, healthy mind and healthy body, religious generosity, and finally, the doctrine of karma. The world, according to Buddhism, is full of sorrows. Salvation can be obtained only by renouncing it. The aim of preparing a person for a future life existed in this period. It also emphasized the development of rationality. Egalitarianism was an important feature of Buddhist education. Education was open to all people. It is interesting to know that there was no discrimination based on caste or sex. Its education included comparative religion, mythology and philosophy, practical and secular training, study of subjects like Sanskrit, Pali, medicine, astronomy, law, administration, and vocational training for earning livelihood. Its approach was reflected in its education, where it avoided the extremity of self-indulgence and self-abnegation. In fact, it favored the middle path. The monastic life highlighted the virtues of celibacy, poverty, and prohibition of sexual relationships. Mendicancy was advocated for living. As in some of the present-day educational institutions, the admission procedures are prescribed. One could only get into a monastery by his bride invitation ceremony. The person seeking admission had to wear yellow robes and say, I quote, I take refuge with Buddha, I take refuge with religion, I take refuge with the order, I unquote. In a sense, this was the oath. This was followed by the commandments which stressed abstinences from taking life, taking what is not given, impure practices, telling a lie, intoxicating drinks, eating out of time, dancing, singing, and being shown, using garlands, scents, ornaments, and finery, use of a high and long sword or seat, lastly receiving gold and silver. Commenting on these commandments, Professor R.K. Mukherjee observed, quote, the sacredness and inviolability of these moral, political, social, and economic obligations were thus very properly emphasized and recognized by the order, which did not countenance the violent and revolutionary method of accomplishing spiritual revolution. I unquote. So let me now invite your attention to some of the institutions of higher learning. There were very famous Buddhist universities like Nalanda, Vallabhi, and Nagarjuna. They were of international fame. Yunsan, the Chinese traveler, claims that viharas at Nalanda were built by successive kings. He says that the whole establishment is surrounded by a brick of wall. One gate opens into the great college. From wood separated 8 other halls, standing in the middle. I unquote. The Buddhist universities attracted students from countries like Japan, Korea, China, Tibet, Java, and Sumatra. Nalanda University was easily the most famous. Its hostels consisted of 300 rooms, and there were in residence 8,500 students, 1,510 teachers, and 1,990 menial staff. This composition of teaching, non-teaching staff, and students compare favorably with the present-day composition of these categories. Yunsan, a Chinese traveler, describes in great detail the living conditions of students at Nalanda hostels. In hostels, the main consideration was to see that the students were not disturbed with their studies. This was the criterion for providing accommodation to students. The further writes, the daily timetable was regulated by means of a water clock, a contraption consisting of a long bowl of water with a smaller perforated one flowed into it. Use immersion of the smaller bowl indicating a quarter of an hour, which was announced by one stroke on the ground. The one is after the management of hospital. Therefore, the affairs of the university, from the annual assignment of rules to the trial and punishment of offences, actions of fraternity, and expulsion of recalcitrant, were administered by the entire body of students. I unquote. This is a good example. It's a good sample of involvement of students in the affairs of the university and hostels. There were staff who covered such functions as distribution of places among students, distribution of roads, receiving of books, distribution of dry foods, etc. Sir, from the various accounts, we get the impression that the relationship between teachers and students was very cordial. Even a superficial examination of the Buddhist educational system reveals that it has great relevance to the modern time. In India, we are facing these various tendencies, marked by political turbulence, economic, social inequalities, religious, secular and religious harmonizations, interpretation of physical values, wildlife conservation, not only from India, but also countries like Japan, Korea, Thailand, and China. All over the world, people are discovering their roots. In this respect, our roots are very strong. We only need to highlight the important features of these roots. This will greatly help the present generation if we can follow the best features from our tradition. Thank you very much.
इसके बाद क्या एक तो पहला मिला था उसके जवाब में हम वही थे
Hammer dan itu